my journey this year, and the biggest differences are I realized that I was very much a teaching coach, and it wasn't player first, it was always me. I was telling player, do this, do that. And that's how, I had been taught, that's how these players had been taught. They were really confused at first. We would ask them a question and they'd look at us and like, well, I've always been told to do this. We're asking them to think a little bit, be able to react to different situations and move on their feet. I mean, that was huge to me.
The journey this year has definitely seemed a lot different than last year, especially. They're almost like polar opposites, in my opinion. Last year, our team was very loose. We didn't really have a lot of accountability for each other. We were just kind of like guys doing their own thing. Guys got away with things they really shouldn't have gotten away with. Whereas like this year, in implementing the PDS program and all of that, it really helped us keep each other accountable. And then the coaches were accountable for us, and we were accountable for them too. So it was a nice mix of everyone being responsible and keeping in line.
Between the 2017 and the 2018 season, players were speaking more directly with coaches, speaking their minds on how they thought they can improve with the team, and I thought that helped the team significantly.
As far as individual players, there's one in particular that was talented beyond belief, kid that we thought should be playing in college, that as a junior really didn't do much. He had strong arm, fast, big, everything you'd look for in an athlete, very athletic, but really no coach previously had been able to get to him, and we couldn't understand. It's one of those guys that's kind of a conundrum to coaches. They love him. You see this kid, like, oh, this kid's a superstar. And you just get him on the field and he doesn't perform. Well, this year, that same kid came in to initial practice and was like in that same type of mindset, realized what we were doing as we started to teach him, and just became a leader, became one of our best players, led the team in hitting, is going on to play in college now, got recruited. Just the change in him from previous years, and I saw that when I saw him play in the summer too. No coach had ever really been able to get to this kid and get everything out of him and make him understand that just to be excellent every day and what that meant.
Some of the biggest differences to me is basically accountability is like one of the main things that we like to focus on. Like, one thing that I noticed with this team that I haven't really noticed with other teams is like players are allowed to hold the coaches accountable, and there's like open dialogue no matter the time or where you're at. It's like you want to be accountable like with yourself, with your teammates, but then another aspect that was added to it was with the coaches, and I just thought that was pretty, important, so that like coaches knew what was going on, players felt that they had a say in what was going on with the team, and the dialogue was just open within everybody.
The impact it had was phenomenal. I mean, we were all in practice. We practiced a lot harder, a lot more technical. Everything we did in practice was a lot more sound, and then it translated real well onto the field, and we kept the same principles in the game too. So if something happened in the game where we weren't allowed to do that, or it doesn't align with what we believe, everyone was on top of it real quick, and it impacted us in a great way.
The cold review process was interesting at the beginning because the players were still figuring it out. So they were kind of repeating what they had heard at practice and what they thought we'd want to hear. And even though I would tell them, when I was in front of them, like, don't tell me what you think I want to hear, tell me what you really feel. And they never really truly understood that. But with cold review, they could go sit down, think about things, and as they started to understand it more, it became very thoughtful.
The biggest thing was the team review and how we can expand and be better as a team, and I really think that is great. Developed a better camaraderie for the team, but we also, if let's say I notice someone's really having a hard time with that, I put it in my cold review. Other people can also notice it and maybe be a little more attentive to it than I was if I was busy doing something else. So it really helped everyone know the weaks and the strengths of everybody else on the team.
The thing I liked with the cold reviews is that you weren't there's no BSing. I mean, because if everyone sees your answers, so they know. The reason why it was such a good tool for the team is after each game, you were able to take a step back and say, okay, here's what I did, here's what I'm happy with, and here's what I need to improve on. You were able to say what you thought about the team It's kind of same thing, what you liked, what you think you need to improve on, and then meanwhile, while you're doing that, so are, 20 other teammates. So obviously, if there's something that keeps recurring, it's something you guys are doing well or something you need to fix, and you all know what's being said. Coaches were able to respond to each cold review, and I like that too because it kept the dialogue open. They were able to give you ideas, you were able to shoot ideas back.
For me to be able to step back and put it more on the players in the rule of three, that is such a huge thing, that the players then take responsibility for themselves. And it's second to have the teammate be responsible next in line for them. And the coach stepping in only when he had to made such a huge difference.
Instead of the coaches just directly jumping to you and telling you what you need to improve on or what you need to work on first, you had to search for that yourself and see if you could identify that. And if you couldn't, instead of the coaches coming to you, it was actually your teammates.
The biggest thing that stands out for me from a coaching wise was the coaches kind of stepped back a little bit and really helped us develop our own, we're our best coach, that philosophy. And I think that's the best thing for us in life because pretty soon we're going to be done with high school. If we play college baseball, it'll last another 4 years, maybe 5 years. But after that, there's no coaches for us. But it's not like the coaches were completely gone from us. They were still there if we needed help. But it really helped us develop our own sense of coaching. And I think that helps us understand the game a lot better too.
In the past, I'd have been focused on one guy or two guys and then jumping in and this guy needs to be taught and I tell them what to do. Whereas now I can step back and see the whole dynamic and what everybody's doing and then step in where needed. And in most cases, the player would step in and I wouldn't have to. And then I could focus on fine-tuning the little things and the behaviors and pushing them forward. Being able to have that rule of three amongst the coaches was so great in the fact that we could support each other. Brad was the head coach. He was the guy that took all responsibility and how can I help him? What can I do to help him? And this year with having the PDS in place, the coaches communicated so much better amongst each other, and I feel like we were able to take some pressure off that head coach and help him out. Having the weekly meetings and having the Slack, having some discussions during the week so that on game day it's not Brad is dealing with all this and making all the decisions. We had input during the week, so when stuff came up during the game, it was easier for him to make a decision and that stuff just wasn't hanging on his head, that we were able to give him some more support. It's one of Mark Bennett's principles is the hot review. And when I first sat down with Mark, I'm like, hot reviews are going to be an issue for me. That's something, I'm the type of coach likes to sit back, think about things overnight, and then come back in and say, okay, this is, and again, to tell, this is how we're going to do it in the future. Mark, made me realize how important those hot reviews, as I pointed out previously, and the boys saw that in me, and they told me at the beginning I was coming in hard. We can't talk to you, you're attacking us. You need to figure out a way to back off. Through the help of the coaches and the players then telling me that I could now just approach it in a different manner. I was able to figure out through that input from both players and coaches to figure out how to do that better and be a better coach for them.
Being able to hold coaches accountable and the coaches being all right with it and open to it, because the coaches are constantly searching for dialogue on how they can get better and how they can improve within themselves, whereas other coaches, they might see it as you're almost calling them out.
They're able to listen to me now rather than they're mad, a mistake happened, now they learn nothing, they're frustrated, they're not listening to a word I say. They're listening, they have input, I have input, and it's quick, it's done. They've learned from a situation, a mistake immediately, and we're moving forward and we're better for it. In previous years, and I have a great example of that, play happened on the field. The kid came off the field where he had made a mistake, he made an error, threw the ball away. And I went to the kid and I said, hey, let's talk about that. And immediately, boom, head drops. Oh man, I'm gonna get yelled at, I made an error. Let's just walk me through what just happened there. Halfway through the conversation, I pointed out to him, oh, mindset was great there, you're thinking right. And all of a sudden, he was like, you could see him thinking, I made this mistake, run, score, and the coaches tell me I did something really good. And then we continued that conversation. And then later in the game, another situation came up, and he came running over to me. Hey, hey, let's talk about it. That was, to me, the biggest thing, whereas in the past, it was head down, not listening, not going to learn, not going to get anything out of the conversation. I'm going to talk about it 2 days later after we both thought about it. The situation's gone, and next time it comes up, it's going to happen again. Whereas now, I feel like we've addressed it in the moment, and it's next time that situation comes up, they're going to make the right decision, the right play, and they're going to be successful.
Finding success, I really enjoyed that because success isn't the same thing every day. You might have different opponents, different challenges each day. And if you define success based on what that is, I think it's a lot more helpful. It's a self-reflection of yesterday, and then you can set a goal for today.
A big impact the defining excellence, I thought, was that everyone knew like something so simple but yet can make a tremendous difference, giving everything you have with what you have in the moment. And being able to like think back to that or having a constant reminder of that just helped everyone know like, okay, although it might be practice and it's not a game and we're in Cleveland and the weather might suck, we still have to do everything that we can in this given moment with what we have to get better.
The impact of the defining success and the working excellence is, as the team, I think it's something that I pointed out earlier, where situations come up during the game. There's a mistake happens, it's not wheels come off, everybody's feeling like they have to do it themselves. I have to make the next play. I have to make the perfect pitch. It's no. As a team, because we're pushing that excellence, they know the guys behind them will, okay, this guy made a mistake, move on, next play. All right, and that's was so effective for the team.
Looking back, it was a great year. It was a great learning. It was kind of unique and odd for me at the beginning because this isn't really something I've thought about. But looking back, I mean, really, you being your best coach is obviously, I think, the best thing because you know yourself better than anyone else. So the approach of the rule of three, it helped a lot, and I know it's a lot easier for sometimes for people to talk to other teammates and other kids like, this is what I'm feeling. Like, it's a lot easier to communicate with them rather than a coach. So overall, it's just a fantastic experience.
Another thing too that helped was that like you could speak your mind and there'd be cases where they don't agree with you. They keep the dialogue open, tell you why that like maybe wouldn't work. But then in the same sense, if there's something that you do present to them and they do like it and it works for the team, they actually implement it in.
Our season ended this year in a very similar way as last year, but it was such a different feeling, such a different situation. Last year, the wheels came off. Everybody's heard of the wheels coming off. The wheels came off, and there was no chance from that point for us to win the game. This year, a couple mistakes happened. We were still able to finish, get out of that inning, and still had a chance, and almost did come back and win that game. I mean, just the shift in how things went in that specific situation, very similar situation from previous year to this year, was amazing to me.
Things I learned this year from Mr. Bennett and the whole program, it's really I think it's gonna help me and help the other captains keep everybody on the same page, keep everybody accountable, and repeat the success we had this year. I mean, obviously our success was kind of cut short, but that's more of a baseball aspect. I think when we were off the field practicing or the mental side of the game, we had a really successful year in, and I noticed a big difference from 2017 to 2018 in that. So I'm very happy with what we had, and I look to continue it next year.
One thing I'd like to say is like, although it was the same result, so to say, like losing in districts, I think if you looked at it, I mean, being a part of it, the season was completely different. I mean, the year before, I mean, everyone was pretty much divided, doing their own thing. Wasn't much time outside of like practices or games going into it. Whereas this year, everyone was constantly putting in their time, you know, communicating with one another. So although we had the same result, I think the seasons were dramatically different, and that's just going to build strength going into next season.